What is up, Broncos fans? The Denver Broncos Show back here again to do another video. In this video, I just wanted to preview and break down the Broncos' upcoming playoff game against the Pittsburgh Steelers in the AFC Divisional Round of the playoffs on Sunday at home here in Denver. It's a rematch, of course. We played Pittsburgh earlier this season back in Week 15. Lost that game to Pittsburgh 34-27 in Pittsburgh on their home field. Was kind of a game that was a tale of two halves. Got off to a great start against them, and then kind of just self-imploded there in the second half. They were able to take over, there in that second half, take advantage of our mistakes, and never look back and got a great win. So this should be an interesting game. I'm sure revenge will be on the mind for the Broncos. And the first game was definitely a physical game. Definitely got a little bit chippy there with the Steelers in the first outing back in Week 15. So I expect really no love lost between us and the Steelers come Sunday. First and foremost, consistency is probably the biggest thing for the Broncos going into this game with the Steelers. Just putting together four quarters of good football and really just not shooting ourselves in the foot and not really beating ourselves, so to say, I think are probably the biggest keys for the Broncos going into this game. Again, you look back to that first game against the Steelers back in Week 15, we did not play a consistent four quarters against them. We outscored them 27-13 in that first half, and then were outscored 21-0 in the second half. Again, blew that 14-point lead and lost the game. So putting together four quarters, and again, not really self-imploding, that's going to be huge for the Broncos. The Broncos are a team that is great at losing home playoff games and is great at kind of shooting themselves in the foot and self-imploding, so to say, beating themselves. You look at the Broncos' turnover differential this season. We were -4 in that category, which was the worst of any playoff team this season. So you don't like that. And we have 31 giveaways this season, which was tied for second most in the NFL this year. So again, the Broncos are great at kind of shooting ourselves in the foot. And again, will history repeat itself, so to say? The Broncos have a knack for losing playoff games at home. I mean, recently, last season we lost to the Colts. 2 years ago we lost to Baltimore. We lost to the Steelers in 2005 in the AFC title game. And then we lost to Jacksonville in 1997 with Elway. So we kind of have a knack for shooting ourselves in the foot. We have a knack for losing, playoff games at home. So all of that is kind of a recipe for disaster, so to say, for the Broncos. So again, being consistent, playing good, playing four quarters of good football, not playing one good half and then playing one bad half, and not shooting ourselves in the foot, taking care of the football. So again, consistency and not beating themselves, so to say, I think will probably be the two biggest keys for the Broncos here against the Steelers come Sunday. Next key for the Broncos here in this game against the Steelers, I think, is balance on the offensive side of the football. That's something that we really didn't possess in the first game against the Steelers. We weren't really able to run the ball at all. You look at Ronnie Hillman and C.J. Anderson in that first game against the Steelers. They only combined for 18 carries for 62 yards. Again, we weren't really able to get anything going in the run game against Pittsburgh in that first outing. We only had 4 rushing first downs against the Steelers. And again, Hillman and Anderson had a combined 18 carries to 44 pass attempts for Brock Osweiler in that game. So there wasn't really any balance, so to say, on the offensive side of the football there. And again, we really didn't commit to the ground game. We didn't block well up front. We got to be more physical, kind of win that battle in the trenches, and really kind of take away Cam Hayward, Stephon Tuitt, those two big bodies up front for the Steelers defensive line, kind of take those guys away, and again, be more physical, win that battle at the point of attack, and get the run game going and get that balance on the offensive side of the football. That will do us wonders here against Pittsburgh. And we definitely have been trying to run the ball more effectively. You look at the last two games, Ronnie Hillman and C.J. Anderson combined in the last two games against San Diego and Cincinnati for 48 carries, 320 yards, 3 touchdowns, and averaged 6.6 yards per carry between the two of them. So you like the fact that there's kind of some momentum with this running game. I think we've been blocking better. Max Garcia, Matt Paradis, Luis Vasquez, those guys have been doing a great job of really blocking inside. And I think running the ball inside, again, being more physical, kind of taking away Cam Hayward and Stephon Tuitt to open up those inside running lanes will be huge for the Broncos, and getting that balance on the offensive end will also take some of the pressure off Peyton Manning and open up some of the vertical passes down the field to DT or Emmanuel Sanders. So balance on the offensive end, again, also will be crucial for the Broncos' success here against the Steelers. Into the next key of the game for the Broncos, going to the defensive side of the football here, we got to pressure Big Ben here much better in this outing against Pittsburgh than we did back in Week 15. We had 3 sacks against Ben Roethlisberger and the Steelers offense in that Week 15 matchup. We hit him 6 times, but really all our pressure came from one guy. guy, which was Malik Jackson, who did a good job of providing some interior pressure. He had 1.5 sacks and 3 quarterback hits alone by himself in that first game against the Steelers and on Big Ben. But we really had zero pressure on him in that second half, and he was able to stand in the pocket, go through his reads, and really just have all day to kind of pick apart our defense. And he really had a great game against us. He goes 40 of 55 for 380 yards, 3 touchdowns. He also threw 2 picks, but he was pretty flawless in that second half against us in the first down. And I know he has a shoulder injury, and I'll get to that a little bit later in the video. But still, you got to find a way to consistently pressure Big Ben for 4 quarters, and you got to get more, quite frankly, from Von Miller and DeMarcus Ware, who were non-factors in that first outing against Pittsburgh. Von Miller and DeMarcus Ware in that first game against Pittsburgh in Week 15 combined for 0 tackles and 0 sacks. Steelers have a very physical offensive front and offensive line. David DeCastro is one of the best guards in football. Marcus Gilbert, Alejandro Villanueva. They're just a really big physical group, and this group has done a great job blocking without arguably their 2 best linemen, and Marquise Pouncey and I believe Kelvin Beachum, who both are injured. So this is a big physical front that did a great job protecting on the edges. Again, kind of just took Von Miller and DeMarcus Ware out of the equation in that first game. We still need that interior presence from Malik Jackson and Derek Wolfe, who were good in the first game pressuring Big Ben and kind of getting into his vision, so to say, and collapsing that pocket interiorly. But we need Von Miller, we need DeMarcus Ware, Shane Ray, those guys providing the pressure from the outside. Maybe even see Wade Phillips utilize some corner blitzes here with Chris Harris off the edge, or even safety blitzes with TJ Ward, who didn't play in that first game against Big Ben. And hopefully you disguise some blitzes to get more pressure to Big Ben, because again, if we allow him to just kind of sit in the pocket like we did in the second half, he's going to pick us apart once again, whether he's healthy or not. So pressuring Big Ben will obviously be big for the Broncos defense, and Von Miller and DeMarcus Ware have to wake up and have to be factors in this game against the Steelers on Sunday. We got to find a way to not allow Martavis Bryant and Marcus Wheaton to be such factors like they were in that Week 15 matchup. They combined for 16 catches for 149 yards and a touchdown in that Week 15 matchup against the Steelers, against us. If Antonio Brown misses this game, they're obviously only going to be more involved. So obviously we need Bradley Roby, we need Chris Harris, both those guys to step up. And having TJ Ward for this game, obviously he didn't play in that Week 15 matchup, also will be crucial. Having him really spy Bryant, not allowing Bryant to get kind of past him and take the top off our defense, so to say, that will be crucial. But just really limiting those guys. Again, 16 catches, 150 yards and a touchdown between them in that first Week 15 game against the Steelers. You can't allow that similar type of production and expect to beat the Steelers here, because again, that will allow Big Ben to get in a rhythm, and once this vertical passing attack that the Steelers possess gets in a rhythm, they're really hard to stop. So having TJ Ward kind of be that physical presence in the secondary, and then Bradley Roby and Chris Harris obviously in Aqib Talib, they're all going to have to step up. And obviously if Antonio Brown doesn't play, that will help us immensely. But if he does play, you're going to probably put Talib on him, and then Roby and Harris are going to have to contain Bryant and Wheaton, because if we can contain those two and Antonio Brown still goes off, I think we'll be okay. So containing the Steelers' other playmakers besides Antonio Brown, even Heath Miller, their tight end, their running backs, Todman and Toussaint both showed some ability as well in that Bengals game of receiving ability, and can't let them get in open space. Big Ben threw a little check down pass to them and let them break it off for 15 yards. So our coverage has got to be better, and again, contain the Steelers' other playmakers besides Antonio Brown will be big for the Broncos defense as well here in this game. A huge factor in this game that is pretty much out of the Broncos' control is just kind of the amount of injuries the Steelers have right now to major components of their offense. You look at D'Angelo Williams, he's really iffy to play. Doesn't look like he's going to play. He has an ankle injury. I already talked about Antonio Brown. He has a concussion, and apparently his chances are not looking good right now to play. That would obviously be an immense blow to them. And Big Ben, from all the reports, it looks like he's going to gut it out and play, but he's got a sprained AC joint and torn ligaments in his right shoulder, which of course is throwing shoulder, so he's day-to-day right now. So obviously how that, kind of how the injuries play out throughout the week, that's going to be a big factor in this game is the Steelers kind of being shorthanded on Sunday without Antonio Brown. It's looking like without D'Angelo Williams and a banged-up Big Ben, how effective is their offense really going to be? So the Broncos might be catching a break there, but also the Broncos got to remain focused, and we got to prepare like Antonio Brown's 100%. We got to prepare like Big Ben's 100%. Last key here to the game for the Broncos, and probably I think the biggest key to the game is the wild card, as I like to call it, which is Peyton Manning. Well, what Peyton Manning is going to show up here against the Pittsburgh Steelers. 7 weeks off, 7 weeks of rest to rest his foot, and it definitely looked to benefit him. So, he was pretty solid against the Chargers. He went 5 of 9 for 69 yards in that game, made some nice throws again, had great command of the offense, made a couple crucial audibles and adjustments at the line of scrimmage that led to touchdowns for the Broncos and some key first downs there in that game against San Diego, again, to help us get that win and clinch the #1 overall seed and home field advantage in the AFC. So having a healthy Peyton Manning back obviously could be a huge wild card and huge X factor for us. And again, I think that 7 weeks of rest that he had is going to be huge for him. And the fact that he's kind of going into these playoffs somewhat fresh, so to say, off 7 weeks of rest, and this pretty much becomes a 3-game season for him. He's not coming into the season with any, kind of ticky-tack injuries or any bumps and bruises. He's going to be fresh. He's going to probably feel rejuvenated. I think that's pretty crucial, and I think that's a big thing a lot of people aren't talking about. But again, it's kind of which Peyton Manning is going to show up, because this is also a guy that, before he, had the 7 weeks to rest, threw 17 interceptions and was only completing 59.8% of his passes. And this is a guy that also has not been successful in the playoffs in general in his career, and has definitely been up and down in the playoffs with us. We have a 2-3 record in the playoffs since we had, acquired Peyton Manning back in 2012. And you look at his numbers in the playoffs as the Broncos quarterback, he has 9 touchdowns, 5 interceptions, and 4 fumbles. So pretty much 9 touchdowns and 9 turnovers in 5 playoff games for Peyton Manning as the Broncos starting quarterback. Again, he's a guy that has a knack to just not play well in the playoffs, and in particular with us in home playoff games. So it just kind of depends on what Peyton Manning shows up. But again, he's probably the biggest wild card in this whole ordeal, so to say, for the Broncos. He think that 7 weeks of rest and the fact that it really turns into kind of a 3-game season for Peyton Manning, and his body's feeling good and he's coming into the playoffs rejuvenated and kind of off 7 weeks of rest instead of coming off, playing 17 straight weeks and being all banged up. I think that's that could be a huge factor again, because he looked a whole lot healthier when he came in that San Diego game. But again, if we're looking at recent playoff history and success with Peyton Manning, not only throughout his whole career, but just primarily with the Broncos, getting 9 touchdowns to 9 turnovers in 5 playoff games. Hopefully history doesn't repeat itself, so to say. So leave me a comment below, guys. What are your keys to the game here for the Broncos against the Steelers, and how do you think this game's going to play out? What do you think is the most important things the Broncos need to do to come out with the win on Sunday and advance to the AFC title game? That's it for me, guys. Really looking forward to this game. Should be a great matchup. The Steelers are a great team, and injured or not, banged up or not, you still got to respect their team. Great coach and Mike Tomlin. They're going to be ready to go. And they're a chippy, physical team that kind of lives for these big playoff games. So it's just great to have playoff football back in Denver. Great to have a home playoff game, and hopefully we don't shit the bed once again here against Pittsburgh. So thanks for watching, guys, and as always, go Broncos. Hopefully they can get the win on Sunday and move on to the AFC Championship game.